Astral Gateway podcast. I'm Narit Staviciani, founder of Astral Gateway Community and author of Beyond the Edge Journeys in the Astral and Dream Worlds. If you're interested in astral projection, lucid dreaming, consciousness, spiritual growth, and exploring the deeper side of these experiences, you're in the right place. Today, I want to start at the beginning and share how this journey began for me. I did not discover astral projection through a book, a course, or a teacher. It started with an experience that completely caught me off guard when I was 16 years old. At the time, I had never heard of the term sleep paralysis. This was back in the mid 90s, long before we could pull out a phone and search for answers. I had no idea what was happening to me. One night, as I was drifting off to sleep, I felt a strange pressure building in my head. Then came intense vibrations moving through my entire body, and it felt like I had somehow taken a wrong turn between being awake and asleep. And suddenly I couldn't move. I was completely frozen. I remember I tried to scream, but nothing came out. And then things got even stranger. Above me on the ceiling, I saw that something that looked like a horse pulling three carriages upside down. There was a powerful wind roaring through the room, swirling around me. It was one of the most frightening experiences I've ever had. Eventually, I managed to move part of my body and everything vanished instantly. The wind was gone, the images were gone. I was left just laying in bed trying to understand what had just happened. I remember the next day at school, the memory came flooding back. I couldn't stop thinking about it, and before long, it happened again and again. For a while, I dreaded going to sleep. What had always been a place of rest suddenly felt unpredictable. I never knew when I might find myself back in that strange state. But over time, something began to change. I noticed that the more I fought the experience, the more frightening it became. And the more I relaxed, the more control I seemed to have. And what started as fear slowly turned into curiosity. And curiosity eventually became exploration. Instead of trying to escape the experience, I began experimenting with it. And I discovered that if I stayed calm, I could move. And at first, it was like small movements, but eventually, it felt as though I was floating, flying, soaring through the sky. The very thing that had terrified me became something I actually looked forward to. Looking back now, I'm actually grateful I didn't have immediate answers. If I had searched online and found a simple explanation, I might have dismissed the experience and moved on. Instead, I stayed curious. Now, years passed and life got busy. Work, responsibilities, you know how it is. And adulthood gradually took over, and the experiences faded away. For a long time, I hardly thought about them at all. But eventually, I found myself wondering if I could reconnect with that state again. I had a feeling the key wasn't forcing it, it was relaxation. So I started creating simple routines before sleep that clear my mind, focus on peaceful scenes, usually a quiet forest, and sometimes I'd imagine a deep humming sound, almost like a didgeridoo in the distance. And other times I'd focus on movement, like pendulum gently swinging back and forth. Now, as an artist, I would sometimes design things in my mind or visualize patterns and artwork. Um, I started playing the guitar, so I mentally practiced chords and melodies in my head as I drifted off to sleep. So that created focus. Little by little, the familiar sensations returned, the vibrations, the awareness, the strange space between sleeping and waking. Then I remember one morning something happened that changed everything. My body was asleep, but my mind was awake. I could see my blanket clearly, even though my eyes were closed. I felt the urge to move my arm. When I did, it moved, but my physical arm hadn't moved at all. That experience opened the door to something entirely new. Over time, I learned to move more freely in that state. Eventually, it felt like I could separate completely from my physical body. I remember one experience where I lifted upward and what felt like it felt like a backflip before I returned to my body. As my confidence grew, so did my curiosity, and I wanted to know what existed beyond my room, beyond my immediate environment. And there was a porch door in my bedroom. Okay, so and each time I entered that state, I would try to get a little closer to it to see what's going on behind that door. And night after night, I made progress. Eventually, I reached the door and I opened it. And what was on the other side wasn't my porch. Every time I opened the door, I found myself somewhere completely different. It was not my backyard. Like different places, different realities, different experiences. And those experiences eventually led me down a path that became much bigger than just astral projection itself, because over the years I realized that real value wasn't simply the experiences, it was what they taught me. A lot of people come to astral projection and lucid dreaming because they're fascinated by flying, exploring, and experiencing something beyond ordinary reality. And those things are certainly fascinating, but for me, the deeper gift was the personal growth that came from them. These experiences have a way of turning your attention inward. They bring things to the surface. They reveal patterns, beliefs, fears, and insights that can easily get buried beneath the busyness of everyday life. Most of us spend our lives focused on the outside world. We're constantly doing, solving, rushing, planning, reacting. But in this state, something shifts. You begin listening differently. You receive. You begin seeing yourself more clearly and receiving insights that don't always come during the noise of daily life. Some of the most meaningful lessons I've received through astral projection and lucid dreaming weren't really about other realms at all. They were about healing, understanding myself, letting go of old fears, trusting my intuition, and reconnecting with something deeper within. That's why I see astral projection and lucid dreaming as much more than unusual experiences. They can become powerful tools for self-discovery, healing, spiritual growth, and that's what we're going to explore throughout this podcast. Okay, so thank you for being here, and I'll see you in the next episode.